But I have to admit, and maybe this says a lot about me, but I thought the film was going to be even grosser and even more disturbing. Not to say that it doesn't have like a couple of scenes that will make you cringe in the best way possible to me. But I thought they were going to go even further with it throughout the entire movie. So let's go ahead and get into Saltburn. Possibly one of the most divisive films of 2023, I guess, for a variety of reasons. I have to admit, though, before watching the film, I had no idea what those reasons were, or even really what the film was about. I hadn't seen any trailers. I hadn't read any synopsises. I didn't even know who was in it, aside from Barry Keoghan, who plays the film's lead of Oliver Quick, is this like shy, awkward Oxford student. Outside of that, nothing. It's actually very similar to an experience I had like a decade ago when I saw David Fincher's Gone Girl. I had no idea what the film was about outside of it being directed by Fincher and starring Ben Affleck. And I ended up really enjoying the movie. I was like, wow, all the twists and turns and stuff. A very well-acted film. Really a big surprise for me that particular year. I think it was like 2010 or something. Or like 2011. It was around the early 2010s. Really enjoyed it. So I wanted to check it out. I wanted to check out Saltburn soon in 2024 since I missed it initially in 2023. And to provide you with the synopsis that I did not have going into this movie, distraught over a classmate's unfortunate and seemingly difficult living situation, a rich Oxford student invites his shy classmate to his opulent family estate of Saltburn. But strange things begin to unfold over this summer break. Now, as I said before, I was really curious to learn about all the controversy and what apparently disturbed so many people that watched the film. People were going on about how this movie just indulges in the debauchery of the rich and mixes in disturbing gothic twists. And listen, it most certainly does. It most certainly does. But I have to admit, and maybe this says a lot about me, but I thought the film was going to be even grosser and even more disturbing. Not to say that it doesn't have like a couple of scenes that will make you cringe in the best way possible to me. But I thought they were going to go even further with it throughout the entire movie. However, I'm really happy to say I actually really enjoyed this movie and the performances of its cast and its cinematography and the several twists and turns that kept me very interested, very invested in this story of just like a seemingly shy university student rubbing shoulders and in some cases rubbing dicks and vaginas with these eccentric rich family members. To me, it's like a modern era Downton Abbey with more drugs, sex, and gothic horror. The acting and the characters across the board, I think, are great in Saltburn. And you have a talented number of people in the movie delivering some fun and disturbing performances. Everyone from Jacob Elordi to Richard E. Grant, Alison Oliver, Archie Madquay, and Rosamund Pike, who, funny enough, was also the co-lead in Gone Girl, the movie I also knew nothing about before watching it. That's a hell of a weird coincidence over, 13 years later? Over a decade later? That's kind of nuts. It's like, whoa, what is that? So I wonder if, next decade from now, there'll be another movie of Rosamund Pike. Oh, it's like I know nothing about. And you're like, oh my God, it's you again. It'll be in three times in 30 years. Or 20 years or something like that. Multiple decades. But the true standout of the cast is Barry Keoghan, who delivers a shy, unusual, but incredibly disturbed performance as the character Oliver Quick. We initially kind of just see him as this very awkward, bookish student who begins to develop an infatuation for Elordi's character of Felix, and it just escalates and gets even weirder and grosser as he interacts with more members of the family at the Saltburn estate. I don't want to say too much because there are some really crazy reveals in regard to Oliver and Keegan's performance of him. So I don't want to spoil any of that stuff. You guys are gonna watch that. You'll indulge in those scenes just like I did when I first saw this movie. So I don't want to mention any spoilers for it. I also mentioned the cinematography earlier, and I think it's very good. We see the majesty of the Saltburn estate and the British architecture and the stonework, all very beautiful. It's literally looking like something out of a Harry Potter movie, minus the wizards and the magic, more, the rich opulence and the drugs and, again, the debauchery and the dicks and the vaginas, But it's the inside of these places that the movie really got me into it, just the look. The lighting and the shadows made so much of the movie feel like a gothic thriller at times. And because there are certain unnerving performances in the film, it makes these sequences and shots even more atmospheric and sometimes creepy. I'm guessing the movie is so divisive because it does indulge in these grotesque sequences that are not quick, and honestly, they take their time with them. However, those scenes don't feel exploitive to me, and they feel in character, especially with the people that are participating in them. Again, if you are a fan of just weird 70s, 80s era gothic horror movies, but maybe with a little bit of modern sensibilities wrapped in there, kind of like, that experimental period in the 2010s, like with horror. If you like all that kind of stuff, right? Maybe a little bit of Get Out, if you will. Maybe a little bit of something like Midsummer, but mixed in with kind of like a 70s, 80s, kind of sensibilities of this rich, opulent manor and being with all these characters just in one secluded location, just constantly interacting with each other. And I think you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of something like this. It's got a lot going for it. But at the same time, it's not going to be for everybody. There's going to be some things which, I know, again, I go back to this. Maybe I just have a really high tolerance for gross stuff. And you're like, that's pretty fucking gross, but it's probably going to get grosser. It kind of doesn't. It kind of doesn't at all. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. Now, to be fair, I did have an edible, and I was drinking while watching this movie, and so maybe that just kind of added to it for me. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And so I wasn't really bothered as much. I was certainly disturbed by some of these things. I was certainly creeped out by a number of these things and just made a little squeamish, but not maybe to the extent that some other people did where it really, really bothered them. I can understand the material, the subject matter, and the indulgence in some of these gross things could be a huge turnoff to a lot of people, certainly mainstream audiences. But overall, I think it's a very well put together production with a number of great moments and performances and again, some really great atmospheric cinematography, both during the daytime and at night and in the hallways and the bowels of this, opulent estate of Saltburn. While it probably wouldn't have made my top 10 best movies of 2023, I would have certainly highlighted it in my honorable mentions. High. It would have probably been high in my honorable mentions. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film, and and I think especially the first hour kept intriguing me, and then that second hour it goes crazy, and I think I kind of loved it for that. But what about you guys? How did you feel about this movie? Again, this very, very, perhaps the most divisive movie of 2023. Did you actually really, really like it? Like myself? Did you hate it? Like clearly a number of people do? Or were you more in the middle? Were you you liked it, but there's some things you didn't particularly care for? Let me know.